Drug dealers of Reddit. What is the strangest thing you've been offered in compensation for drugs? Someone offered me their dog for a $50 bag. They were such a crappy person and a terrible dog owner. You best believe I took that frickin' dog. And we had 8 glorious years together. Don't tell my current dog, but that was the most caring dog I've ever met. I miss the big guy every day. I really hope this thread doesn't get as depressing as I think it's going to. We'll see. At least this one is kind of wholesome, right? The dog found a better home. That's good. I hope it continues on this path. Story 2. Not a drug dealer, but I sold insurance to low-income people. I went to collect the premium for a family's insurance and they had a dog tied to a tree with maybe a 1-foot lead. And that may be generous. I told them it was my hubby's birthday and I would give them $20 for the puppy. They told me to take the frickin' dog away because it was a pain anyway. It was hands down the most grateful, happy, loving dog I've ever owned. Rest in peace, McCoy. I miss you so much. Story 3. Former drug dealer here. I used to do it so I could afford to eat while at uni. I once had somebody offer to invite me to Christmas dinner in exchange for some weed. I said yes, and I got to enjoy Christmas with him and his family stoned out of our minds. Was an awesome experience. And since I couldn't afford the trip home for Christmas, it turned what would have been a depressing day into one of my all-time favorite memories. Story 4. In my younger days before being a parent, I sold weed, and I ended up fronting a lot out. And when people couldn't pay me, they would give me iPads, bong, knives, and one time almost a gun. But I didn't know if it was stolen, so I declined. I accepted almost anything I thought was useful or cool. The strangest thing I got was a $1 t-shirt. It was just $1, but it was folded into a tiny t-shirt and I thought it was cute. So the kid basically got a gram for $1. I still have it too. Story 5. I had a friend begging me to bring something over to him. When I asked about payment, he said he had something better than money and I would be pleased with it. He wouldn't say what it was, but made it sound like it wasn't safe to mention over the phone. From the way he was talking, it seriously sounded like something extremely hush-hush. I was intrigued. It ended up being like $9 across 3 gift cards, a 2-megapixel digital camera, and an old phone that was missing the battery. He said the digital camera could be sold at a pawn shop. The phone could be used to hide drugs until I got a battery for it, and the gift cards were just something extra he felt like throwing in to sweeten the deal. I also had an incident where a friend of mine needed to buy, and I decided to hit up my contact to pick up on their behalf. The friend picks me up and drives me to the dealer's house, and I ask for the money before I head inside. They reach behind the seat and pull out a Ziploc bag full of pennies, and was like, "Trust me, it's all there." For clarification, the drug was just weed. But this was before California allowed recreational shops, so only a handful of people had access to it in my area. And I did not take the pennies to the dealer. I had enough to front my friend, so I paid for it and kept the bag. The amount of coins did end up being the exact amount needed though. Story 6. Not a drug dealer, but my drug-dealing friend once came into the kitchen of the restaurant while I'm chopping celery or something. He's dragging a big, huge black garbage bag behind him. He'd already been to prison once and just got back out apparently. I said, "George, is that a frickin' body?" He goes, "Frick yeah, it is." I gripped the knife a little tighter at that point and looked for the exit. He pulled the garbage bag back and he had 3 huge Alaskan salmon in there. Some guy didn't have enough cash, so he paid him in salmon. I gutted them and cleaned them, and then George paid me in salmon. It was good salmon. George lied to you, man. That was 3 bodies, not just 1. Story 7. Friend of mine used to sling various drugs while he was in college. Mostly weed and psychedelics, but he dabbled in the harder stuff here and there. He said some dude offered to live with him as a personal dong sucker for a week in exchange for some absorbent amount of snow. Something like 2 ounces for being an on-tap BJ machine for a week. My friend didn't even have that much at the time. The most he ever had at a single time was like 20 grams, and he only sold it when he came across it for a stupid cheap price, and during spring break when all of the hardcore college partiers were going on spring or summer break. He turned down the offer. Story 8. Back in the 90s when I was selling a lot of ice and X at raves, I had one dude offer me a gold wedding band for a baggie. I took it and noticed it had some Cyrillic writing on the inside. I took it to a pawn shop I knew that had a Russian owner, and he told me it was from a family in Russia that was very connected to the royal family that was murdered during the revolution. I knew the kid and his parents, and I knew he had stolen it from his mother, who was a child of refugees from the revolution, so I just stuck it in an envelope and mailed it back to them. Story 9. In college, I had a buddy whose house we would always hang out at. He sold all sorts of stuff. The best offer he ever got was from this 50-year-old lifelong junkie woman. She was a landscaper in her better days, and once she ran out of money, she started offering my friend plants. He rolled with it, and a few months later, he had a beautiful garden in his backyard. She even dug a pond and made a koi pond, Pretty good deal for both parties involved. And a win for us friends too, because we got to chill and smoke in an awesome backyard. Story 10. In a darker period in my life, someone once offered to sign the title of their car over to me for a week. I had people wanting to give me gift cards for half its value, people offering to buy me things from Amazon for half price, coin collections, jewelry that a magnet wouldn't stick to, used tires and rims, lottery tickets, their girlfriends for a night, but my favorite was a promissory note. Screw all of that, I'm so happy I'm clean now. I don't have the will to live like that anymore. Story 11. Not a drug dealer, but I once found a bag of weed in the high school parking lot and some kid I was with said, "I'll give you my Xbox 360 with the games for that." Yeah, dude, sure, I was gonna throw it away anyway. And that's how I got my first gaming console. My parents asked where I got it from, and I told them the truth. They were just like, sure. Story 12. I dealt small amounts of various drugs in addition to tending bar while in college. One of the Mexican kitchen guys wanted a bunch of X, $350 worth, and I got it for him. When it came time to pay up, he said he only had $100, but he would get the rest to me in a week or so. I was having a Super Bowl party that I had invited everyone to, and a few days later he asks if he could work off the balance by catering the event. I agreed and assumed he would flake, but homeboy showed up 30 minutes early with some of the most fire Tex-Mex food imaginable. Trays upon trays of anything you could think of. It was unreal, and probably cost him more than he owed me. It was a big reason we served Tex-Mex at my wedding, because I knew a guy who could throw down. His catering company did a great job that day, but he did an even better job as one of my groomsmen. Story 13. My friend in high school got expelled but kept coming back to deliver weed. He was never stopped because teachers were his clients. He ended up banging one of the student teachers for a bag. Only reason I know about it is she came over while we were playing Tony Hawk and not so sneakily did their thing while I waited in the kitchen. High school was weird, man. Story 14. I had a neighbor who dealt weed and probably other harder things, but I don't know. He was a weird guy. Not a bad person, but definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He accumulated a lot of random stuff because people were always offering him it in trade. The big ones were mostly electronics, like a nice TV and consoles, but random things too, like paintings and tools and furniture. His house looked a little like a really nice resale shop before his girlfriend put her foot down. Last I heard, he got arrested for felony possession while out drinking. Well, if you're gonna do big enough business, yeah, you're gonna get got eventually. Although, I guess from the way OP wrote it, it kind of sounds like that it was just his own possession, like his own stuff. OP never mentioned him getting hit with intent to distribute, so I guess that's not too bad for him. Really though, it sounds like the guy was running a mini pawn shop out of his house, so that's kind of fun. Story 15. Obligatory not a drug dealer, but my weed dealer has asked me a few really weird favors in exchange for weed. Every time he always asks, "Mate, I've got a proposal for you." He's asked me if I've had any duty-free tobacco that I could give him in exchange for weed, because he thinks UK tobacco duty is too high and he refuses to pay it. He's asked me if I had any alcohol I would exchange for weed after the shops stopped selling at 10. I actually did this and got a joint's worth for a small shot of amaretto. I gave him a lift in my car around the corner from his house to pick up some Valium, and he gave me a gram of weed. He's totally harmless though. He's a good guy and sometimes he has quite a good chat, so I don't mind doing it. Story 16. A cat for 3 Xanax bars. The cat was covered in fleas and super young. I took the deal because I felt bad for the cat and I wouldn't trade this cat for $1,000,000. We have had 4 amazing years together. He's pulled babes for me, he acts like a dog, sleeps on his back, and follows me around the house. Best deal ever. I love my kitty. Story 17. Had a guy who would pay me in turtles. Like those miniature red slider turtles you would get at fairs and carnivals. The first time I was cool with it. He knew I loved reptiles and I wanted a new pet ever since my bearded dragon died. Rest in peace, Shlomo. Anyway, this guy would sometimes pay me actual money, but every once in a while he would claim he needed a dime or something small but didn't have the money. So he would opt to pay me in turtles. Now, by all means, I love animals, but hey, I'm running a business here. I can't feed myself with turtles. They're too small to eat even if I wanted to. But strangely enough, I accepted the payments. 3 months later and this guy is buying in bulk, which is great for me because less weight on me equals more money. But this frickin' guy was matching what he was buying in turtle weight. After the first couple times, I got kind of scared because I was thinking, where the hell is this man getting all these turtles? Mind you, I'm from the Northeast. We aren't really known for our reptile population. So here I am accepting turtle over fist trying to save each of these turtles. Because I suspect that this guy is somehow acquiring these animals through illegal methods. Long story short, the guy gets arrested on exotic animal charges and does 10 to 25 years in state maximum. I thought I was the criminal, but this dude is the kingpin of reptiles. Unbelievable. This is This is a really funny image. Cause yeah, OP or any sensible person would be like, man, where are you getting all these turtles? There's so many turtles. Turns out dude is reptile kingpin of the Northeast. That's kind of fun. Like, not fun because the animals don't have good homes and they're probably miserable outside of their habitats and all that, but hey, Turtle King. Story 18. I used to sell weed in college. Nothing major, I had about 12 clients, but the money was good enough that I never had to buy my own stuff, so it worked out. One day I came home from my comprehensive exams in sociology. It was the only time I had never known if I had passed or failed a test. I was stressed, to say the least. So I twisted up a joint and boom, munchies hit like crazy. I need food. Knock at my door. Some chemical engineering guy brought me a vat of chili. Like it was at least 10 gallons. All he wanted was an eighth, which was like $35. I gave him that, and the chili was so good, I tracked him down and gave him another. Story 19. My dealer hooks me up with enough weed until I get back on my feet if I show up with produce from the farmer's market that happens on Sundays near my house. He's a hippie vegan and loves making fresh, squeezed juice, but works on the days the farmer's market is on. I love going to the farmer's market. I love trading carrots, oranges, and beets for ganja. I love rolling a blunt while I wait for my dealer to make a freaking fresh squeezed juice. Win, win, win. Weed is legal in California, but until a dispensary offers fresh squeezed juice and a joint while they get me my stuff, I'll stay loyal to my bud and my buddy. Story 20. Former dealer/cook. Did time and straightened up now. You get offered all kinds of things. Intimate favors, stolen goods, whatever they scavenged. Once, someone tried to make a purchase from me by offering a wadded up ball of copper wire the size of a beach ball. Looked like some big tangled bird's nest of various gauges of stripped wiring. Heavy as hell. I turned it down. One that made me do a double take was 2 of these 1-gallon Ziploc bags of nickels. I told him to go find a Coinstar and get back to me. You see tons of stolen phones and tablets and laptops. But if you're smart, you don't touch anything that can be tracked by GPS. Like, yeah, there are ways around those things, but hey, why bother? One dude tried to trade me 2 dead possums and a fishing pole for a sack. That was an interesting encounter. Story 21. Not the dealer, but the trader. When I was a kid, I went to Legoland with my family, and we ended up getting a small backpack in the shape of a Lego brick that I think came free with our tickets or something like that. Whatever the case, we had a few of them amongst the family. Many years later, I couldn't find a backpack, so I grabbed one of these little Lego ones, which were admittedly kinda cool. I went to grab a bag of weed, and as soon as my then dealer saw the bag, he freaked out about it, telling me he would buy it. I just told him he could have it if I could have an eighth, and he was happy to oblige. Story 22. Not a dealer, but once while in college in the 90s, I was at a pot festival, and I traded an already really high kid a frisbee for some of his mushrooms. His girlfriend tracked me down later and was all mad and wanted me to give him money. I didn't have any money, and I ate the mushrooms feeling justified in my trade of a perfectly good regulation frisbee. Story 23. Once this guy showed up to get a bag. He didn't have any cash, but he had some rolled up dimes. I accepted since they were rolled up. After he left, I opened them up. They were silver, I think, and really, really old, like early 1900s. I took them into a coin shop. They ended up giving me $20 or so per coin depending on the date. One day there was a knock at my door, and the kid was back and in a panic. He requested the dimes back because he had stolen them from his dad, and his dad was furious. I told him they were gone. Most profitable $20 sack I ever sold. Man, it's always kind of sad hearing about people stealing things to buy drugs. Like, it's one thing if you have your own means and you can indulge, for sure, especially if it's just weed. But if you're out there stealing your parents' stuff for drugs that young, things are not going great. Story 24. I had a customer who would pay me in bags of change when he wanted to re-up. He would even lie about it too. He was a stupid, dorky teenager. He would text me, "Hey man, can I get an eighth? I'll leave the cash under the tire of my mom's SUV. Just drop the weed there and take the money." I'd say, "Ryan, are you gonna leave me a bag of frickin' nickels again, you piece of crap?" "No man, not again." I'd roll up and what would be there? A bag of frickin' nickels and dimes. The thing is, he knew how much it infuriated me, so he would intentionally overpay by $10 for the inconvenience. But why the hell did he always have so much change and no cash? I would have cut him off, but he gave my number to all the rich preppy kids at his private school, so I cleaned up on just his connections alone. If I blew up on him, he definitely wasn't above telling his friends to not hit me up anymore. Then I wouldn't be able to sell eighths for $60 to kids who didn't know better, and the gravy train would derail. So I took the bag of change in angry silence. Story 25. My friend used to work at a Canadian Tire gas station. They have an in-store currency called Canadian Tire money. Anytime you buy any product from their stores, you get a certain percentage back in their currency. When people didn't want their Canadian Tire money, he would take it. The guy we bought weed from would sell it for Canadian Tire money at a 2-to-1 rate. So if you wanted $50 worth of weed, Buddy would give him $100 in store money. Worked out pretty well for both of them while it lasted. Story 26. I was a smoker of 20 working in a warehouse. Had been there for about a year at the time. My dealer was going to a tech school nearby, and wouldn't you know it, he was having a hard time with math. I mean, really, really hard. Like, there's no way he passed high school math kind of bad. He was failing everything he did and flat out not doing anything else. He paid me with a bag of weed to catch him up and help him pass math. I was always pretty good at math, and I had a buddy of mine that was in engineering, so it should be an easy task. So about 2 hours in, I've been making almost all A's. It was very simple math problems. Multiplying fractions, converting units, etc. But I was having to review a little for everything because of curveball questions that they like to throw. Within the next 2 hours, I have my friend show up and we smoke and continue working. After about 4 hours, though, I begin to notice that the score isn't going up much at all. I decided to do the math on how his grade was factored with what he had done versus what he would need to pass. This bro managed to fail 3 of 4 major tests, and the highest his possible grade could get was a 67. Screw me for not checking beforehand. The worst part of it all, this guy was still too frickin' dumb to understand why he was failing the class, and blamed me for not finishing the last few assignments as a reason for his grade not getting high enough. He didn't know enough math to calculate his own grade, and how badly he screwed himself by failing major tests and how weighted percentages worked. 1 out of 10 would not recommend that trade to others. It's probably for the best this guy doesn't get a job in that field then. Honestly, I think this is the best possible outcome, OP. Story 27. In high school, my mom used to pack me an extra lunch for my unfortunate friend who couldn't pay for his food. Well, that friend was my plug, who used to smoke me out every morning, and gave me $20 eighths. I invited him to dinner a couple of times and he would smoke me out and slide me a gram. Half a year later, as we became more friends than business relations, I found out the reason he would trade me weed for food was because his mom was a druggie and never made food. He said my mom's food reminded him of his grandma. We're both Mexican. He sold drugs to feed himself and stay in school. Left me all teary-eyed. He came over all the time after that and I never took his weed again, although he always insisted on smoking me out. We graduated and he went to college. He was a bit of an airhead but very dedicated. And then we lost touch. Coincidentally, I bumped into him back in our hometown at a party the day before my birthday this year. It was such a nice surprise. Said he had something for my birthday. Ended up taking a tab for the first time. You know what? This is a nice, wholesome story. I think this is a good place to end it on. A bad home environment leading to selling drugs, but then it actually got better from that. So, you know, not the worst path things could have gone. And huge props to OP for insisting it's like, hey man, don't want your drugs, just have some food. That is absolutely huge. A lot of respect for that. Anyway, this thread was nowhere near as depressing as I thought it would be. And actually, a lot of these stories were pretty fun. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I also hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.